As the Nationals continue to ramp up on this whole rebuild, you can't forget one thing. Mike Rizzo is a free agent after this season, and they need to get on that as soon as possible.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. If it's your first time tuning in, thank you very much. I'm your host, Ryan Clary. You can catch me over on Twitter at RyanClary11, as I have taken my passion for this baseball team into podcast form here with the Locked On Podcast Network, where you get your team every single day. Later on in today's show, the Nationals, as yesterday, it was a crazy day as far as weather on the East Coast. The Nationals did have that game canceled last night. First and foremost, hope everyone's all right from those crazy storms that hit the D.C. area yesterday. But now let's play two. The Nationals are in Philadelphia for a doubleheader today, and it is a Josiah Gray day. Can't wait to preview that series. Also in the second segment, we got to start talking about this one former prospect, because I need to start seeing a little bit more from these Nationals and from these young Nationals, but one in particular I really need to see more from, because we've seen step-ups from C.J. Abrams and as well as your all-star Josiah Gray. I need to see one more National take a step up and finish the season strong to make me feel a little bit better about myself. I'll tell you who that is and what needs to happen in that second segment, but let's start off here. As the game was canceled yesterday, I kind of just started to think on my drive home, we are heading into a big, prominent offseason. And a lot of people, the forefront of that, I've always kind of said, and I think a lot of people out there have always kind of agreed with this thought. This is the kind of the 2010 period from the past Nationals dynasty, you could say. And what I mean by that is we're about a year and a half away from really contending baseball. I think you start to see your Steven Strasburg coming up, these big-time prospects, Ian Desmond coming up to the big leagues and hopefully making a difference. And I think we're already starting to see that with C.J. Abrams, Josiah Gray, and whatever other young guy you want to point out and highlight here. Not only that, you think of that was also the offseason going into 2011, to where they made that big, surprising splash move, signing Jason Worth to that, at that time, a huge contract. A lot of people were not happy with it. A lot of people said that was a dumb move, but ultimately worked out pretty well for this Nationals team. And the man behind that was Mike Rizzo. The man behind those 2010 national teams was Mike Rizzo, the GM and the president of baseball operations for the Nationals. He is also a free agent heading into this offseason. Now, he was after 2019 as well. The Lerners, they got him an extension. They got Davey Martinez an extension as well, and all has been well. Mike Rizzo, here's the thing. It's kind of a touchy subject amongst Nationals fans. Some people, on the other hand, including myself, you might say, well, look what he has done through the draft. When you have guys like Andrew Friedman from the Los Angeles Dodgers, who have been competitive as long as the Nationals have as well. They are the only team in baseball that won more games than the Nationals in the 2010s. Andrew Friedman is a great GM, a great president, and the great head honcho, as I want to say. Mike Rizzo, on the other hand, you could look at his drafts and say, there's an obvious hit and miss with Mike Rizzo. You could say that the Nationals haven't had an impact player since maybe Anthony Rendon out of the draft. Seriously, you could make that argument. You could. But also the difference is between what that Nationals team and the Dodgers team could do is they could spend all the money in the world, which they have always had. They've always had a top payroll in all of baseball. Now, while I think Mike Rizzo and the Lerner family, I think they get knocked for this a little bit too much, in my opinion, because having a top 10 payroll in all of baseball, you can't really complain about that. I just don't really believe in the whole nonsense as to why the learners don't spend. Now, while at this moment in time, if they were to spend, would this team be better? Absolutely. But as we see with Steve Cohen, Uncle Stevie, and those New York Mets, it doesn't always work out that way, as that team could be on a 90 pace loss at this moment in time. But I think this team, in the rebuild that has already started, the rebuild that has already started to take shape, you see guys like C.J. Abrams, Josiah Gray, Mackenzie Gore, James Wood, name all the big-time prospects, in particular the guys who are already in the major leagues. You're already starting to see the rebuild take shape. Mike Rizzo heading into this offseason, if he were to leave this team, if the Nationals were to move on from Mike Rizzo, I think it would be a great mistake by this Nationals team. I truly do believe in that. Because I want to see this process through. You've already gotten this rebuild started. If you want to move on from Mike Rizzo for some analytical genius, I'm sure that would work out just fine. I think Mike Rizzo would be a very hot candidate amongst other teams, to say the least. Because I don't think the question rather is, will the Nationals keep Mike Rizzo? I think the question should be, will Mike Rizzo want to leave for a possibly better situation? And there's one big hole that I look at in the NL East that needs to be filled. You may ask what that is. The New York Mets and Steve Cohen, they've mentioned that they need a president of baseball operations. Now, they've always been named. There's been a ton of names in the mix. I believe back in 2020, the Steve Cohen Mets were also trying to get Mike Rizzo to join them at that time. Ultimately, the Lerner family, they made him one of the highest paid executives, if not the highest in all of baseball, which was the right decision at that time. But I think this team, and where we are right now, it would be a huge, bad idea to let Mike Rizzo walk with what he has already started. Because if you were to have someone come in, whoever that may be, whatever philosophy, whatever they have as a background, if they're a scout, if they're an analytics guy, whatever it may be, I think it would be a big disappointment to see Mike Rizzo walk away this offseason. It would be. Just because of the process that he's already started. And I think the worst possible thing for these prospects were to be if you were to give them new management and give them new material. Now, I've said it in the past. This team has to be better with analytics, in which they have gotten better with. You're starting to see some prospects turn that corner in their development, and you're starting to see a little bit more progress than what we have seen over the last few years. But it would be a grave mistake by this team to head into this offseason and not have at the forefront of their priority to sign Mike Rizzo to an extension. But again, I don't think the Lerner family will mess this up. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibilities that they're going to give him some big extension, because in my opinion, he deserves that extension just from what he has done. He's made the most out of a pretty crappy situation, to say the least. You have to trade away Trea Turner and Max Scherzer. You have to trade away Juan Soto, Josh Bell. All these pieces that meant so much to this team, and even in the past, Kyle Schwarber. Whatever you want to make of it, Mike Rizzo has made the most of that crappy situation. He truly has. He's gotten the prospects, he's gotten the farm system back together, and I think this team is now back on track to be a winning baseball team within the next 2 seasons. I truly do believe in that fact of this. But also, if you were to move on, if this Nationals team were to say, we're not going to pay him what he's worth, because his worth is going to be expensive still. He's still right now one of the top executives in all of baseball. He's going to have to get his bag, as what the kids would say. So this Nationals team, they cannot put themselves in a situation to where you're going to say, we can find someone else. Because in baseball, it's really not as easy as the NFL and the NBA. General managers and president of baseball operations, they aren't kicked to the side the way that they are across other sports. Ownership realizes that there's a process that goes into it. And I think if you were to disturb that process that Mike Rizzo has already started and really jump-started, put a totally new charge in this system, I think it would be detrimental to not only this team, but the prospects down below them. Now, while it could take a turn for the better, you could see Robert Hassel developing into the star that some people thought he could be. Same with Elijah Green. Same with others. But I'm not willing to take that risk at that moment in time. Just because I've seen it with Mike Rizzo. I've seen what he can do. I've seen the talent evaluator and the contracts that he's given out, besides Steven Strasburg. All those deals were good. And I think what he does best, I've said it plenty of times, he's the best in baseball when it comes to making trades. I believe in that. And I think that actually goes into a lot of different things that this Nationals team has done over the years. You even think back to smaller trades, Christian Guzman. I know OG Nationals fans remember that name, Guzman. You got back a nobody in that return. That nobody was Tanner Roark. And as well as another prospect. Tanner Roark was a very good pitcher for this Nationals team over the course of a few years. Very good before injuries really spiraled his career. So I think if the Nats, if the Lerner family were to say, we're good on Mike Rizzo, we appreciate your efforts, you're a legend in this town, but I think we're going to move on. I think it would be a grave mistake, not only for this franchise, but for the prospects down below. Trust the process. It means something, and it means something to all of us. I trust Mike Rizzo, and I think you guys should as well. Thank you for making Locked On Nats your first listen every day. The Nationals play the Phillies today at 4:10 Eastern Time, and as well as 7:10 Eastern Time, as you can catch Trevor Williams and Josiah Gray, and as well as every pitch of the Nationals hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Nationals there. And now, before we get into talking about that one player I need to see take a little bit of a step up, I need to tell you guys about our friends at BetterHelp. And this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Sometimes in life, we're faced with tough choices, and the path forward isn't always clear. That is why I want to tell you guys about our friends at BetterHelp. Whether you're dealing with decisions around career, relationships, or anything else, therapy helps you stay connected to what you really want while you navigate life so you can move forward with confidence and excitement. Trusting yourself to make decisions that align with your values is like anything. The more you practice it, the easier it gets. And especially nowadays, when you're starting to get into the colder weather, here comes the fall, it's going to get a little bit tough for us all because we love the summer and we love the heat. Let the therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnMLB today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnMLB. Now let's get back into it, as we've been talking a lot about these young prospects in this season that has been all about the young talent for this Nationals team. We've seen a lot of people, Josiah Gray and CJ Abrams, at the forefront of that, really taking a step up this season, getting into leadership roles, and really just playing great baseball for this Nationals team down the stretch. But there's also another former top prospect who the Nationals traded away Max Scherzer and Trea Turner for, alongside Josiah Gray. That is Keibert Ruiz. Now, I say that. How concerned am I? First off, let's just get that out of the way. How concerned am I about Keibert Ruiz as a whole, as the future of the Nationals backstop? I'm not all too concerned, I will admit. I'm not. But if I were to say I'm slightly concerned, I think that would be fair. And at this moment in time, this is a touchy subject. This is kind of something to where not a lot of people would align with this ideology. But Keibert Ruiz, at this moment in time, 2023, has sort of been a disappointment, in my opinion. Because in 2021, he got his feet wet in the major leagues with the Washington Nationals. Good. He looked really good in that time, in my opinion. 2022, last year, at times, similar to this year, he looked really good. And defensively, I thought he was really good. This season, though, the concerning part of this is that he hasn't really taken a step up. In fact, his numbers are pretty damn similar. Now, while, again, we've talked about it, I did a show on it a few months ago, Keibert Ruiz is probably the unluckiest hitter in all of baseball. He is. You could say that. But at some point, you got to get a little bit more out of Keibert Ruiz. And so here are some of the numbers that stuck out to me for Keibert Ruiz. His line drive percentage is down to a 25.3%, down from a 28.2% of last season. You look at his hard hit percentage, it is up by 0.3%. That is improvement. His pull percentage is down from last season, which is improvement in my opinion. Now here's where it gets a little bit tricky. His win probability added is down to a negative 1.7, meaning he's not helping this Nationals team win when it comes at the plate. His walk percentage is down. Now his strikeout percentage is also down. But the concerning part with Keibert Ruiz is that his numbers are pretty pedestrian, if we're just being honest. And I thought heading into this season, we'd see that step up. Because let me reiterate this. Keibert Ruiz was a power hitting catcher. This is someone who hit multiple big-time home runs down in the minor leagues. Someone that the Dodgers truly believed in, and they weren't going to be giving him away for just some nobody prospect or some nobody ball player. They got a franchise shortstop with Trea Turner, who they let go, and Max Scherzer, one of the greatest pitchers that this generation has ever seen. But the slugging numbers compared to last year and this year, it's better this year by 23 points. That's fine. But his on base is down by about 16 points. His batting average is down by about 8 points. His OPS is ultimately better than by about 7 points at this moment in time. But I need to see this step up from Keibert because I can't keep coming on here and talking about how, well, he's an unlucky hitter. He is. The numbers dictate that. The numbers have always dictated that with Keibert Ruiz. But at some moment in time, I need to see a little bit more. I need to see some consistency with his at-bats. Because at some times, it feels like he just goes 3 for 4 with 2 doubles and has 3 RBIs in a game, and he goes over that for an entire series. And then all of a sudden, it just kind of disappears. I can't really explain that, but it just feels that way. You had that gut feel with Keibert Ruiz while you think that he could be doing a little bit more. You feel like he should be doing a little bit more, but he just hasn't gotten to that point yet in his career. Now, his expected batting average is in the 82nd percentile. That's good. His strikeout rate, 99th percentile. His whiff percentage, 97th percentile. Now, where it's bad, his barrel percentage is in the 34th percentile. His chase rate, 17th percentile. His average exit velo is in the 22nd percentile. And lastly, his hard hit percentage is in the 15th percentile. Those analytics, you can say all you want about them. You can. A lot of people will say, crumble those up like a piece of paper and throw them out the window. I don't care. I understand that part of it. But when you're not doing, at this moment, his job, which he was extended by this team, not because of these numbers, not because he's going to hit for a 683 OPS for the rest of his career. That's not what this team is banking on when it comes to him. We need to see just a little bit more. I need to see that OPS above 730. And I think that is ultimately very reasonable for this guy. Because yes, I can sit here and say he has been an unlucky hitter. But since when are we going to settle for below average, which is what this is at the plate? And also, his defense has taken a little bit of a step up as his framing ranks in the 6th percentile and his pop time to second base ranks in the 2nd percentile. At this moment in time, again, let me reiterate this. I'm not ultimately so concerned with Keibert Ruiz. I'm not out here saying ring the alarms, we have a problem. But when you think of it this way, that Riley Adams and what he has done, batting 300, has an OPS over 900. His analytics are better behind the plate. Some pitchers like Patrick Corbin pitch a lot better with him behind the plate. Not all do, but Patrick Corbin's just an example of that. When are we going to start to think that this is not what we thought it could be and really what it should be. Because I think that's the issue with this Nationals team, is that you have to develop these guys in the major leagues. Keibert Ruiz can't just be having these pedestrian numbers, because that's what they are. I need to see a little bit more. Now, if I were to sit right here and bet with our friends over at FanDuel, if there was a Ryan Clary tab there open, and it is, are you betting on or against Keibert Ruiz being the catcher of the future for this team? I'm still going to bet on that. I believe in the skill set. I believe he's much better defensively than what he has shown this year. And I think he has more power left in the tank, and he's still relatively young. He's still a young ball player. And plus, last year, the second half of the season, he had that testicle injury that really sidelined him for quite some time. But I need to see a little bit more. And I think Nationals fans, I think people can all agree with that. We can all sit back and be adults and say, we need to see a little bit more. So that is something I'm going to be keeping my eye on for the second half of this season, because it's an intriguing one. It's going to be something that this team will be monitoring, because if not, Riley Adams, the way that he's been hitting over the course of this season, we only have a month and a half, and he's got a plus 900 OPS at this moment. That's damn good. The Nationals play the Phillies today at 4:10 Eastern Time, and as well as 7:10 Eastern Time. You can catch every pitch of the Nationals' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Nationals there. Before we get into discussing this doubleheader and previewing these pitching matchups, and also Bryce Harper kind of took a shot at the Nationals and their fan base the other day. I'm going to preview that and talk about those dumb Bryce Harper comments. I'll get to that, but before we do that, I got to tell you guys about our friends over at eBay Motors. And for a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit, or your money comes back, because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Now we get back into it as the Nationals get ready for this doubleheader against the Philadelphia Phillies. And first and foremost, game one of today's doubleheader is, you guessed it, Trevor Williams versus Zach Wheeler. A solid pitching matchup here. Zach Wheeler struggled early on this season, has started to come back and get back into his form, who at this moment in time has probably been one of the Phillies' best pitchers throughout this season. Zach Wheeler, we've seen him over the years. The New York Mets, we know what to expect. You got to get the ball in play on this guy, because if not, he's going to take advantage of you. And now Trevor Williams, who is not a strikeout guy by any stretch of the imagination, it's going to be interesting to see how this defense lines up and how this defense really plays throughout the rest of this season. Missing Jeimer Candelario, I think a lot of people are going to sleep on the factor that he had over on the defensive side of things. He was stout over there on third base. Now, whether it be Ildemaro Vargas or Jake Lou playing third base, they're probably not going to be able to fill that defensive void that we will have over there. So something to keep an eye out for is how this defense will really perform behind Trevor Williams without a Candelario type. Now, it may not seem like the end of the world, but think of all the close bang-bang plays that Candelario made. Will Jake Lou and Ildemaro Vargas be able to make up for that really just missing hole at this moment in time? We'll just have to see from here on out. I like what Jake Lou has done, but I don't think he's the defensive stud that Candelario was for this Nationals in the first half of the season. Second game, it is a Josiah Gray day versus Ranger Suarez. Ranger Suarez has had a really weird year, a very weird year. If you were to just check out his box scores and look what he has done, you'll see at moments in time where he'll just get blown up by the most random teams out there, like the Minnesota Twins or the San Francisco Giants. He will get blown up. And then he plays the Atlanta Braves and goes 7 innings and shuts them down. You never really know what you're going to get with Ranger Suarez. Sometimes he is inaccurate and he just ultimately doesn't get the job done. But also at times, he just dominates. And there's really no in between. So at this moment, you hope Josiah Gray can bounce back from, again, one of his worst starts over the last month, only going 3 2/3 innings, and just didn't really look that good in Tuesday's game against the Brewers. But I think Josiah Gray will be able to take that step up. I think Josiah Gray will be able to bounce back for this team. And I think it's a fair bet to make as well. Just because from what we have seen, the track record with Gray, he doesn't really have back-to-back bad starts. That's kind of been like that over the course of the last year. And really something that he's done throughout his career, even dating back to the minor leagues. He bounces back like the rest of them and does pretty well. So I think this doubleheader will be interesting. You know me, I hate the Phillies. I hate them. I hate the Mets. I hate the Phillies. And I hate the Braves. I don't hate the Marlins, but I hate the Phillies. Anytime we play them, especially in Philly, never forget when they booed or cheered Jason Worth as he broke his wrist. Never forget that. And don't give me but look what they did with Trea Turner. They cheered him on after he was awful, after we booed him for about 900 games before this. Stop it. Stop it. Who's trying to say that Philly has a good fan base? They're awful. Awful. They've always been awful. They always will be awful. Don't give me that. But also, let's talk about Bryce Harper real quick, because Bryce Harper, the Nationals, somehow, some way, still live rent-free. We still live rent-free in his head. As the other day, some people may not care about this. I do. I care about this because I'm petty. I am a petty person. Bryce Harper kind of went on to say, and this is not the exact quote, I can't play the audio on this platform, but I'll give you kind of the quotations or whatever you want to say about it. He basically said, I wish I was played in Philly from the beginning of my career. Oh, Bryce. Oh, my God. Did you just say that? What are you talking about? There's not a single person out there that would say, man, I wish I played for Philly. Who says that? Who would even think about that? Not only was it a slight to the Nationals organization, not only was it a slap in the face to Nationals fans out there, but coming from you, Bryce, come on. Come on. Now, really, should I be upset about this? I probably shouldn't be. I really shouldn't be. I'm so immature. I'm so stupid. But God, Bryce, we know you don't mean that. We know you do not mean that. No one wants to be drafted by Philadelphia. When they get drafted by Philadelphia, they groan and they moan. No one wants to go there. Not only because the fan base is putrid and despicable, but also because what have the Phillies done over the last 100 years? I can make it pretty simple for this. Not much. And plus, who cares about a Philly cheesesteak? I'm sure a Philly cheesesteak is your favorite food at this moment in time. I know what you said about the Italian store in D.C. You like it more than a Philly cheesesteak, and don't you dare lie about that, Bryce. Don't you dare. The Nationals take on Bryce Harper and the Philadelphia Phillies not once, but twice today at 4:10 and 7:10 Eastern Time. Catch every pitch of the Nationals' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Nationals there. Fun show today. We got a day loaded of Nationals baseball. Starts today at 4:10 Eastern Time. You can catch that on SiriusXM with the SXM app. Just search Nationals. I'll catch you guys on the flip side. We'll break down these two games on tomorrow's program of Locked On Nationals. Go Nats. I'll catch you tomorrow.